What's your interest in telling your story?
In telling our story, when you're broken and when you tell your story, it does two things. Is it kind of frees you from holding on to that stuff, and it's a cleansing effect, as well as it's an inspiration for somebody else who's going through it. In my walk, I've had other people tell me their story, and it lets me know that I'm not the only one. Oftentimes when we're in that dark place, we kind of are ashamed. We live in shame and stuff of thinking that we're the only one experiencing this or going through this. And to hear it from somebody else who's been there it's inspiring, and it kind of gives hope. So that's, my parents divorced when I was very young. I think maybe 1 year old. So I don't really ever have any memory of my parents being together or family time together with mom and dad. My dad remarried, my mom remarried, and I lived with my mom. She had custody of me, and the man that she married was a monster, to say the least. He was very abusive, and I just grew up. He was abusive to me and my mom. I can remember being 5 years old, watching him just wailing on my mom and feeling so helpless that I couldn't do anything. And as I got older, the abuse transferred over to me. I can recall being beaten with belts and having to choose my belts, and it seemed like nothing that I did would. I did everything that I could to stay out of his way and be good, and he just found reasons to abuse me and put hands on me. And I remember even I would walk by him, and he had this thing where he'd flick me in the head with his fingers, and just being this kid that, I grew up a very afraid, very scared kid. There came a point where I got bigger, and I wasn't the small little kid that you could push around anymore, and all that fear and everything that I walked in turned into anger. I hooked up with the gangs, got involved hanging out with gang members and everything that goes along with that, guns and violence. Then I didn't have to be afraid because I've got all these guys who have guns and who are not afraid to put fists on or feet on somebody who disrespects or challenges us. And so that felt pretty good to finally be in the position of power, to finally have that control to say, no more, nobody is going to hurt me anymore. As a matter of fact, I'm going to hurt some people, and I'm going to take out this anger and my rage and get involved in whatever comes my way, So I did have a gun. I did.
We got the gun?
Oh yeah, I've shot at people. I don't. There's an incident that happened, and I don't know if I hit anybody, but it was pretty likely. And we got involved in auto thefts and been involved in a couple of high-speed chases with the police. And actually, I never went to jail before my 18th birthday. The day after my 18th birthday, I went to jail on a regular. It was pretty much at least once a month. And
for what kind of stuff?
Various steps, not breaking in, or what's it called? Disturbing the peace, and assaults and possession of marijuana, possession of paraphernalia. At the age of 19, I actually got my first felony for. I was at a nightclub and with some other friends, and a rival gang was there as well. We got into it, had words inside, and when we went out to the parking lot, I was kind of by myself. They were going to jump me, and I had a gun. I pulled the gun out, and just so happened that the police were coming for a fight that had happened. So right as it, and thank God that they came, and I heard the sirens right when I did, because I was ready to squeeze that trigger. And so I hid the gun, threw the gun, ran, and eventually got caught, but went to jail for felony menacing and possession of a firearm. And so that was my first felony. Left the house at 16, moved out of my house at 16, got my girlfriend pregnant at 17, and had a baby when I was almost 18. Had a baby at 18, so now I'm in jail, and I've got a daughter out. She's about almost 1. So I use that whole sympathy story to get out of jail. You know, I just want to be there for my daughter. Before I go to prison, I just want to make some money, and, you know. And my dad said, all right, bailed me out of jail. Probably about 2 or 3 months after that, riding around in stolen Jeep Cherokees with some buddies, and end up in a high-speed chase with Lakewood PD. Took them on a high-speed chase from 3rd and Sheridan to Monaco and Colfax in the snow. And ended up getting caught for that. Get out of jail, called Dad, same style story. And, you know, he bails me out. He's like, oh, you're really going to do time this time. And, oh, but, you know, I understand that, but I had a job. At least I had a job. You know, I got to go to work and stack money. And
So you've got some con in you.
Oh, yeah. So he gets me out of jail, and I'm going to go to church and, you know, that whole deal. So I went to church for a few weeks. Probably about a month after that, hanging out with my cousin, end up in another Jeep. I'm drunk. I'm drunk, passed out. They put me in this Jeep, another high-speed chase. This time I wasn't driving, but, you know, I'm in the back seat, passed out in a stolen Jeep, go to jail again. And this time my dad said, I'm not getting you. I'm not coming to get you out. And, you know, I was convinced, 3 separate felony cases. I'm convinced I'm going to prison. Got caught up. I mean, back then, police contact was like a regular for me, so it was just a matter of time. I got pulled over, and they found the warrant, took me to jail. The DA then brought up the charges on the second Jeep Cherokee case. And I sat in prison, or in jail, Jefferson County Jail, for 66 days. I remember the exact amount of days. But I was in there with just waiting to go to court to find out what was going to happen. It was in that moment I remember it vividly. I had a visit with my daughter. My girlfriend at the time brought my daughter, and we were behind plexiglass, and my daughter couldn't understand why she couldn't touch me.
How old is she?
She's probably about 1 year old at the time. And she was a total daddy's girl. I mean, we did everything together. And so she couldn't understand why she couldn't touch me through this plexiglass. There's rivets around the window. She's pushing the rivets, thinking it's a button that's going to open it. And she's crying and just losing her mind. And it just broke my heart, you know, to sit there in that visiting room and just see the effect that's having on my daughter, and to think in my mind that I'm not going to be able to hold her or touch her again for a long time. And I remember going back from that visit to my cell and just crying. You know, I cried my eyes out, and I got on my knees and I said, God, if you're real, I need help, because there's no way I'm going to get out of this. They've got so much against me that I'm going to prison, and unless you intervene here, I'm screwed. You know, I knew I was doing wrong. And so back to the jail cell, you know, this is the first time that I really felt God, and I felt like he was telling me, it's going to be okay. I got you. And I felt peaceful, and I kind of felt, you know, like God was touching my life and something was going to happen. Well, something did happen. I found in my pod, there was this big pod where they have a bunch of cells and stuff. In the pod, I found a sheet of paper that had all the judges' addresses on them. And it had my judge's address on there. So I went to my cell and I wrote this long, drawn-out letter to the judge and just pretty much pleaded for mercy and said, you know, I've never had to deal with the consequences of my actions. You know, I've always been bailed out of jail. I've always, you know, gotten slapped on the wrist or what have you. But having to sit in this prison for the past, at that time it was like 40 days or something, not knowing my fate. And, you know, I mentioned my daughter and that whole visit. And I said, you know, I realize now that my actions are not just affecting me, that I have parents at home who are crying. I've got a daughter who can't spend time with her dad. I've got a girlfriend who has to try and put diapers and food in this kid's mouth because I'm not out there to contribute. And I said, you know, if you give me the slimmest of chances, I won't disappoint you. I promise. So I stood there, and on the 66th day, I went to court. The judge pulled out my letter, and he said, you know, I got your letter, and I read it, and I was really touched at what you said, and I really believe that you mean what you say. And so I'm going to give you a chance. He put me on intense supervised probation and assigned me to a probation officer who had a 75% return rate to prison. He said, if you even so much as breathe wrong, you're going to prison and you're going to do the time. I was looking at 16 years total. He said, if you get out of line, you will do this time. If you're just blowing smoke, you're going to do the time. So
were you so tough that didn't scare you?
No, it did. It scared me. That amount of time. I mean, nobody likes prison. Even the toughest guys, you know, that claim it's not a big deal. Prison is horrible. Being incarcerated 24 hours a day where they're telling you what to do, when to wake up, what to eat. You can't be with your loved ones. I mean, even if you don't have loved ones, just the freedom to do what you want to do, it's just horrible. It's a horrible, horrible place. And so, no, I was very scared. I did not want to go to prison. So he gave me the shot, and I met my probation officer. He was a big, huge dude. I was this little skinny beanpole guy still. He said, all right, you have to check in every place that you go. I can come to your house at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and go through your whole house if I feel like it, just to make sure you don't have any drugs, weapons, anything illegal there. And he did. He came one night. But, you know, I had to toe the line. And I got involved working with gang members, and I was a mentor to some at-risk kids, and really kind of trying to steer them away from that life. I went on.
Is this because you had to do it, or is there something in you now at this point that's flipped and switched, and you are actually becoming a much more decent human being?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was seeing how stupid the gang lifestyle was. I'm a member of this gang, and we're representing a block that we don't own. We're tripping on, you know, we're getting upset and having confrontations with people because they're wearing red and I'm wearing blue, and it was just stupid. I remember sitting in jail, and it came to me and thinking about the whole thing. I'm like, this is the dumbest thing on earth. Rap was the big thing on the scene, and I immediately fell in love with it.